Welcome back to the Hops and Bops podcast, episode 2. I am producer Tom.
I'm one of your hosts, Joe.
And this time I remembered it's my turn. I'm Mike.
Look at that, we got a bit of a groove going on. So today we are starting off with a little album called Us and Them by Shinedown. And the beer that we're pairing it with today is Fat Orange Cat's Baby Kittens.
Tasty. So we're calling this episode Us, Them, and the Kittens too. That's just what we came up with.
Bit of all in the family, I like it.
All right.
All right, so our...
Should we...
yeah, we're starting with the beer, right?
Yeah,
beer.
Let's crack them open.
Should we crack them? Here we go.
Cheers.
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 Good episode. Let's talk about our glasses.
It's hazy here.
I got a bit of that pour sound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's get on
Well, you can't, there's not really any sound that comes with it.
Go,
I wish there was.
So I'm actually drinking out of a Fat Orange Cat glass today, courtesy of Mike.
Yeah, me too as well. They actually, I've been to their brewery before. It's pretty local, so they actually give you the cups to take with you if you want.
Wait,
It's
because they don't allow you to have a full beer, so they got to give you something.
Yeah, exactly. So they actually give you the little cups that go with them. They're not full size like beer mugs. They're like a bit smaller.
They are.
So it's pretty nice. It's pretty solid.
So this was my beer choice. So a big fan of this. This is pretty much in my wheelhouse. Last few years, I've been getting into these juicy IPAs, New England Style IPAs, which this is, and I think this is one of the best in the state of Connecticut. So this is brewed by a brewery in East Hampton, Connecticut called Fat Orange Cat. And Mike kind of alluded to it. At the brewery itself, they don't sell full pours. They only sell, I think, just taster glasses. And they're constantly brewing new beers and selling them. But they partnered with this place in North Haven called 12% Beer Project.
Yes.
To mass produce their beers and can it so that they can distribute it everywhere. East Hampton is easily an hour from me. So, this was available at my local liquor store. I think it's $10 for a 4-pack. It's super
Something
cheap.
like
That's not bad.
Very affordable. Big fan of it. And it's just overall, I think, a great beer.
Yeah, I actually spoke to the owner when I was there because he works behind the bar and he does some stuff and
Cool.
Trying to get some ideas for music at the brewery and things like that because I noticed it was kind of a low-key situation. No yard games. You couldn't really have kids.
They have a petting zoo there, though. Did you know that?
They
have like goats and stuff
they have
there.
Some goats and chickens.
It's a cool
and things
environment.
like that. But so when I was talking to the guy, I started talking to him that he's got a lot of different restrictions because he's a residential brewery. He is not a commercial brewery.
Gotcha.
So because it's in a residential area, it's on his own personal property. They're actually not allowed to do certain things, and obviously with the size of the place and parking restrictions and things like that, it kind of limits a lot of the different stuff, including how much beer they're allowed to technically serve you at one time.
Yeah, but I think that's just the vibe they're going for. Because if you've been there, it's primarily all outdoors with a bunch of fire pits. It's kind of woodsy too. Like it's in there's a lot of
it's
forest settings.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It's such a cool vibe. I had only been once or twice, but I'm a big fan of it there, and I'm a big fan of this beer. So Baby Kittens, Fat Orange Cat, we're coming in at 6.5%. We're drinking out of 16-ounce cans right now. New England Style IPA. The reason why I like this, it's not as bitter. People either love IPAs or they don't like them. I think if you're just starting out in IPAs, this is a good one to start out with. And if you're a fan of IPAs, I think this one is in your top list. I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah, it's on the higher end when it comes to the alcohol by volume. It's not 5% for a standard IPA, not a double or anything like that. It's not bad. 6.5. It definitely has a very, very citrusy.
Yes.
And,
I was
you
getting there.
go along with that hazy IPA. You can see it in the color. It's very cloudy.
Yeah,
not
it's
as transparent. Hey now.
Oh,
high five.
Well done.
So the hops they use, we have some Citra hops, some Galaxy hops, some Simcoe hops, and they all just provide that citrusy flavor and aroma. So I love it. This is in my wheelhouse. I mean, I hope to expand my palate now that we have this podcast. But don't be surprised if I bring on a lot of these IPAs like that from different places. But this one is one of my favorites. Probably one of the best in the state. Yeah,
the Fat Orange Cat does put out a lot of pretty quality drink options. I've been there before a couple of times as well, and I've had the growler, or not the growler, but like the flight of all of the things they have. They're all relatively pretty solid, and I would assume Baby Kittens was probably my favorite. It's got a perfect mix of, it's not like a full meal where you drink it and you get heavy and tired.
Yeah,
it's still got that lightness to it while still having the characteristics of a pretty solid IPA that I enjoy.
Yeah, it's definitely something you can continuously drink. Like there's not it's a citrus flavor, but it's not like you're hitting a specific fruit that after a long period, like a couple of them, you're like, oh man, I can't take any of this flavor.
Yes.
So it's definitely good in that sense. It's a little bit like you said, it's a little hazier, so it's smooth, but it's not like lager smooth, you know. So it's definitely got a little bit more of that bite. The initial taste, you taste the citrus, and to be honest with you, on that back half, I mean, there's really nothing that lingers, in my opinion. Like it's pretty just you hit that citrus flavor, and then it kind of goes down, and then you're ready for the next sip.
Yeah, it's not very layered. It's all blended very well. You kind of get everything all at once.
Agreed.
Yeah, Fat Orange Cat. Obviously, all their beers are cat themed, and the brewery is named after their owner's cat, who had a orange cat. So if you're a cat fan, hey. The labels are pretty cool. Like this one has a bunch of baby kittens on it. Another one of their beers is called Bruno, has a cat on it. So very cool.
They have a jalapeno beer that I've tried, which isn't too bad. I mean, if you like, it's an interesting feel when you want to hit like you go to have this beer and then it's got almost a spicy taste to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Okay.
Yeah. So they do definitely some experimental beers. When it comes to stuff like that, they jump around a bit, but this is like you said, this is pretty standard. You know, it's a hazy, citrusy New England. I mean, it is a quintessential New England IPA.
Yeah, I know, right?
By the sense of all of it, you know, hard on the citrus portion,
right?
You know, cloudy in color. It's got that citrus kind of flavor when you give it the sniff. And
I did not give it the smell test.
Always got to give it a little sniff.
Oh yeah, it does have a bit of that. Yeah,
get that citrus flavor.
You taste how it smells.
You can taste the hops, but they're not overwhelming.
Exactly.
You know, like the West Coast IPAs, or that's their thing. The hops hit you. You know, but this is a little bit more subtle, and in my opinion, the citrus is actually pretty strong in this one.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it, because I'm a big fan of citrus, even without beer.
Yeah, it reminds me almost of like a citradelic.
Yes, exactly.
From New Belgium.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This beer's great. Big fan.
I was a little thrown off because of the 12% logo.
Yes.
I thought that it was a 12% beer, but it did not taste like that.
Yeah, right. So right.
It kind of led me down like this. Oh, what percentage is this?
Yeah, right.
But,
I mean, like I said, 6.5 is no slouch. I mean, that's definitely got a little bit of bite to it.
I mean,
you drink 2 or 3 of these, you're gonna feel them.
Yep.
I mean, by the end of this episode, if we can't even speak, you'll know why. 6.5%.
And we start slurring.
Yeah. But yeah, so I wanted to bring this to the podcast and talk about it. And shout out to Chris Cummins. He introduced me to this brewery, Fat Orange Cat. He's a huge fan of them, and he pretty much opened my eyes to this particular beer, Baby Kit.
Yeah, but then we jumped on with it was my pick for an album, and I picked Us and Them, not by Pink Floyd, but by Shinedown. I believe that's also a Pink Floyd album.
Did they use the ampersand?
But is a song in?
It's on Dark Side.
Okay, so just so the song.
I believe they don't use ampersand.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we're all about the ampersand here.
Yeah, it's us
and Bops.
It's us and them.
Ooh.
So a little bit of competition.
Yes.
Same title.
Yep.
Okay.
But anyway, this is Shinedown's sophomore album.
Oh, look at you with the terminology.
I love that. I love that term.
Yeah. So this is their second album, and it's using the exact same foursome that was on their debut. Yeah, no, they're big into that. On their debut album, Leave a Whisper, same lineup, And in my opinion, it's just a very different album for them. Their first album was pretty much drop D, like kind of that early 2000s, like, I don't want to say like pop rock, but it was kind of that mainstream rock. You had just the drop D, the heavy chords, no solos, nothing went too crazy on that album. It was kind of the album for the time. And then they put out this album, and it had a huge like bluesy influence. There was a lot more soloing. They had a couple of really good ballads on it, and seeing them twice on this tour made me really just gravitate to this album. Front to back, it's like the last album we talked about last episode with Wasting Light for You. I mean, this is just, I hear when one song ends, I expect the next one, and I'm pissed off when I don't hear it. Right? Because something's wrong. Like, this is not right.
Yeah.
I almost can't listen to these songs as singles. Like, I have to listen to the
album.
And it's always been like that for me since, Jesus, this came out in
2006.
2006. We were in high school, juniors in high school. And,
Thomas, how old were you?
10?
9, 8.
9, 8, oof. Yeah.
A little youngin'.
Aging us.
So I will say that I don't really have a lot of connection with Shinedown. However, Second Chance was my favorite song when I was a child. So
that was on their third album.
Yes.
Sound of Madness.
So I really had no connection to this album, not really personally or musically.
Yep.
So it was definitely a very interesting experience to come into it with nothing like predetermined beforehand to kind of get the first taste of the record.
And you realistically were listening to half of a new band. Because when you started listening to them, so Sound of Madness came out in 2008. They had gotten a new guitarist.
Yep.
They had gotten a second guitarist, and they had also had a new bassist at that point. Which are now the current members.
Minus a
guitarist.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's you definitely can tell the difference between the Shinedown that I would say you grew up with.
Yep. Versus
what they originated and we kind of saw from the beginning.
Definitely.
So I think we should probably get into some of the tracks on this that
Let's do it.
Wowed me. There's a lot of thematic elements that were kind of interesting to me. Yeah, thematic elements, right?
Whoa, you blew me away. Man.
Yeah, sit down. I'm talking about the thematic elements.
Thematic elements. Jeez.
There's a bit of a...
Someone went to college.
So did you.
Recently.
So there's definitely some thoughts of like relationship issues. I know near the end of the album there's like what track is it? Fake. I remember listening to that. There's a bit of like some tension between someone that he's not into or something like that. There's tracks about drug abuse, like Save Me, where he's talking like he's got the candle and the spoon. So there's a lot of tracks that are kind of similar on that depressing and darker side that kind of works itself into the music on the album, kind of pairs with it that sense of, depression and sadness. That kind of it pairs very well with the lyrics. Yeah. And
well, that's a big part of that band
tracks.
In general is his lyrics. I mean, not only is he an amazing vocalist,
that's what I was going to get into next.
He is an actual he is like your quintessential poet. Like he is a lyricist through and through.
Have we said his name? Brent Smith?
Yeah. Brentley Smith.
Brentley Smith.
That's actually his full name. Yeah,
Brentley?
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But anyway, if you see him live and he talks like you're listening to the opening track, The Dream. He's just very into, everybody getting along, everybody really just understanding one another, everybody, just being a part of the same experience at the same time. And it's not just going to listen to the music. Like, you're going for the show. You're going for everything. He makes you, as this little tiny person in the background of the crowd, feel like you're important to what's currently happening, which is just like, you don't always get that.
No.
You get that, like, I'm the band and you guys like me. And he's almost like, I actually, again, when I went to saw them for, I want to say, Carnival of Madness tour at Mohegan Sun, we paid the extra couple of dollars to get Sound of Madness CD, and they signed it. And so we got to walk by a table, and it was very quick. You had to shake hands and walk by and sign the album and move on. But I remember saying to them, like, you can only have them sign one thing. And I was like, I got a couple of people that just love you guys. Can you? Yeah. They signed like 4 different things for me. Like
that's nice.
The album cover, then the CD itself, and then they signed like the leaflet that was inside the CD. Like it didn't matter. They signed everything.
Yeah.
Which was just really, really cool. So you can just tell they're different people. Like they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of similarities with Dave Grohl from our last episode. In terms of like the concert experience, Dave will call you in from anywhere and make you feel like you're front row. Is it Shinedown or is it Seether who's they don't really explain the meaning of their songs? You can, and if they leave it up to the listener.
It might be Seether because Shinedown.
It seems pretty clear based on what Tom
pretty clear. A lot of
said.
stuff like you were talking about a lot of the drug stuff and the depression and all that. So when I saw them the middle of their career, in my opinion, between now and the start, I saw them and there was one point where he had gained a lot of weight and he just didn't look good.
Yeah.
And he didn't really put on a great show. And it was sometime in that Sound of Madness album, so shortly after all of this, which you're talking about, and he did, I believe he entered rehab, he got big into working out, he lost a ton of weight, and now they're kind of on that back half where they're just like absolutely killing it. They're doing a lot of really good positive things, and their music has turned around when it comes to his vocals and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, this album in a sense is almost was like a cry for help.
Yeah.
And then you had Sound of Madness, which was kind of like that next step.
Yeah.
And then they really like hit
acceptance.
from there. They like to pick it up.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I think they just broke the record for most consecutive top singles out of
I wouldn't
any
be
rock
surprised.
band.
Yeah, they're a crazy high selling charting
really are.
rock band.
Right. They're beating all
yeah.
the classic rock bands, all the 90s, 80s.
Yeah.
Shinedown with 16, I think, was the number.
Yeah,
16.
don't get me wrong. I mean, some of their music has definitely gone more mainstream from, divulging from where they really started, kind of in that drop D early 2000s, just kind of like heavier, dirtier
Post-grunge,
rock.
yep.
Yeah, that post-grunge, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, this album was, in my opinion, musically much more in-depth, a little more detailed. You had more riffs that were based off licks versus like just power, like chords and through. And there was just more substance to this. You had solos and, you had some, I don't want to say odd timing because everything was in 4/4, but, just odd
feel.
rhythms.
Right.
Yeah.
It felt like, it feels, because it still exists. It feels like a classic rock album, like because of those licks.
They open with a poem, Dream.
Yes.
And then not only though with that, they open into a bass-driven song.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think they had. Yeah, Heroes is the second album, and I don't even think they had a bass-driven song on the entire first album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they open, then they go into this bass-driven song with Heroes. And again with that depressing feel, all my heroes are dead and gone. You start talking about stuff like that. So right off the bat, they hit you with the like, I don't really know what the fuck's going on here.
Yep. But what a powerful intro to an album.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you have the Dream, which is kind of you got that eerie sense of like a child reading it.
Reels you in.
And you listening to a dream with the reverb into this giant build up to Heroes. It's such a very powerful moment to open up an album with, and it gets it started on such a high note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really does. And as much as I love this album, I will say going into the next 2 songs being 2 of their singles. And in my opinion, Save Me is a good song. Personally, I Dare You, if I had to pick one song on the album to throw out, I'd pick I Dare You. It's just your single they had to make. They just wasn't.
Yeah, I wrote down that it was very 2006. If you can understand what I'm trying to get at by
100%.
that, it's very that post grunge kind of that era, that they kind of had to write to.
It was just very like the whole song. That's like I don't know. It just never really veered from like this one rhythm
And I will say now, to get it out of the way, I'm not a huge fan of this album. There are really good moments on it that I enjoy, but as an overall album experience, it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But there again, the pacing that from the start, from Heroes to Save Me and then to I Dare You, it just kind of just falls off at the very end, especially towards I Dare You.
Save Me is a good song. It's got it's got good lyrics behind it. But again, it's a single.
Right.
You know, it's almost like, unfortunately, besides, because the first 3 songs were their only 3 singles off this album.
Correct.
Yep.
And I found that very interesting. Like, did they arrange the songs on the album on purpose so that the 3 singles were first, or did they, or did the record label say, okay, because the trend is like, you ever notice on a lot of albums that the 3rd song is always the lead single? Yes,
It's
I've seen
true.
that.
Track 3.
It's true.
If you go back to any album, rock album primarily, I don't know how it is in other genres, but especially during like late 90s, 2000s, you look at track 3 and you look at what the lead single was, they're one and the same. And it's, so I wonder who had that influence. Like, why is it the top 3 were the singles, and then the rest of the album almost goes unknown unless you're like us who's listening to albums.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a crazy incentive to play the whole album if you're just kind of into it for the singles.
Right, right.
So it's weird because even with the last album that we talked about, Foo Fighters, they put one of their bigger tracks, "Walk," at the very, very end of the album.
Bold.
And so I'm not entirely sure why Shinedown would do that the way it's stylized like that. But
From Your Majesty on, it's, I don't want to say experimental, but it's a very different feel.
It's here's where our head's at right now. This is the music we want to make. Yeah.
And you kind of go through it, and you've got just a lot of cool tunes. You know, I personally, my favorite song is the 11th track on the album, which is called Atmosphere. It just opens up very bluesy, and you know, the lyrics are a little different, and it's not what I expected from a Shinedown or a band of that type at the time.
Yeah.
And for me, like, that song just stuck with me. And then it's got a solo in it, which at that point, I mean, the whole first album, I don't think there was a single solo on Leave a Whisper.
Really?
And now all of a sudden, Jason Todd, their original guitarist, is ripping it up in these solos throughout this album, and I'm just like, where did this come from?
yeah. I wrote down in my notes for Atmosphere, and also for a few other tracks on this album, there are really big Soundgarden vibes that I get all over this.
Interesting, yes.
Especially with that the lead singer, what's his name again?
Brent Smith.
I'm so bad with names. It sounds just like a Soundgarden track to me, with the kind of inflection that he puts on his voice.
The howling.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah, so if you listen to that, and I think it was Heroes too, it's got that same kind of in style, which makes sense because I'm sure they were influenced by them too.
Sure.
I also wrote down for Heroes that it could easily be on a PlayStation BMX game soundtrack.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that vibe.
A lot of video game references so far on the podcast.
Nerd. Sorry. This album came out, and it was just so different. And for me, I was like, I just gravitated to that. It was something new. And like I said, Atmosphere is lick driven. It's not chord driven. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them are like that. And it just made for such a very different album.
On Trade Yourself In, you remember that track? It's very, I noticed the influences immediately to like BYOB, where they got that no 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 no. That kind of style. It's the influences are very prominent across this, and I think they kind of transfer that well into their own style because they definitely have their own sound. It's not like every single track on this is that's Soundgarden, that's whatever. They definitely have their own sound, but it's interesting to see where their influences lie on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
that song. So BYOB actually came out the year before.
By System,
Was it really?
2005.
Oh.
And then, we were saying Us and Them is 2006, correct?
Yeah.
And so,
so maybe they were hanging out together,
you know.
Trading.
But again, these
notes.
guys were all putting out singles at that time and different songs. And you start hearing things and what worked and what didn't.
Yeah.
And,
it's got that post-grunge sound that we were talking about.
Yeah, right.
Across the whole thing.
For me, Shinedown, I know Shinedown, but I don't know their discography as well as, say, Mike. Mike's a big Shinedown fan. Also, our friend Joe singer of our band, another band reference. But our singer of our band is a huge fan of Shinedown.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, quick shout out, he designed all of our graphics for the podcast. Big ups to him. We're very happy with
Thank you, Joey.
how that came out. So thank you, Joey.
Loving our boy Mojo.
Yeah, Mojo the monkey, hot monkey, love him. Anyway, so I'm not experienced with Shinedown as these guys, but to me this album sounded like they were like on the brink of fame, because I think the next album, Sound of Madness, is the album that, if you look at mainstream, kind of the big general public, that's the album that they're most known for. What's that kind of ballad single on
Second Chance?
Second Chance. Yeah, Second Chance on Sound of Madness. I think a lot of people know that, even fans of, or people that aren't fans of rock.
Yeah.
But this album, you can feel that they were
Almost there.
they were like,
And it's funny you mentioned that, because they changed half the band transitioning to that
in between albums,
which is strange, because you still have Barry Kirch on drums, which he's
been there since day one. Great drummer. I've met him. He's a great
great guy.
Yep.
I mean, he's got beautiful dreads.
Oh my God,
really
fantastic dreads.
I can't do dreads. My hair is too thin. I'd have one.
Although
just one.
yeah, right, just one dread.
That would be hilarious.
And then obviously you have Brent Smith, which I don't think you can have Shinedown without Brent.
No, he is Shinedown.
But I always loved Jason Todd as a guitarist. I thought he did a really great job with the band. It was unfortunate to see him go. I still follow him specifically, like, on Instagram and stuff, separate.
Yeah. Yep.
They did, like you said, they're on the brink of fame, and then they changed two members. And I don't even know the reasoning behind it. I haven't looked into that, but they changed two members, and it was like you can tell though that there is a different sound later on. Mm-hmm. So we got that bassist for
the original bassist is named Brad Stewart.
Brad Stewart.
It's like a NASCAR driver name.
Maybe that's what he
Tony
started.
Stewart's brother.
Yeah, right.
He's driving the.
He's not as good. He's driving the pace car.
He's driving the GoDaddy.com car.
Maybe that's what he did after he left the band.
There's a lot of tracks, especially near like the B-sides, where it kind of falters a little bit for me. But the one thing that's always consistent was very solid vocal performances from the lead singer, especially on the choruses on everything. Because there's some points where you'll get an acoustic track, or you'll get a song that sounds a little redundant in the track list. But every single time, the lead singer is always on point and in a very impressive vocal range for what he can do. Yep. And I was very impressed as a singer to hear what he could do on all of the choruses. It's very impressive.
And again, live, other than the one time I saw them where he, I think, was on the brink of needing a personal change. Prior to and then after him taking care of himself, he is never disappointed. What you hear on an album is what you hear live. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you don't get that.
It's just crisp. It's a crisp sounding album. The guitar work is great. I remember we were in college at the time when like the next album came out, Sound of Madness. And I remember you were saying like, "Oh man, Jason Todd left the band." And I remember how that really stuck with you. And I remember I was like, wow, he was a great guitarist. I wonder what they're going to do. Yeah,
and like I said, with some of his stuff now being a little bit more Southern, you definitely can almost feel that a little bit. With that bluesy kind of. Again, it's a lot more lick-based. Yeah. And it makes me laugh because you start listening to things like Save Me and I Dare You, those singles, and guess what they're not? They're not lick-based. They're very chord. Yep. Your 4-chord progression you go through. But then you get to songs like Trade Yourself and then Atmosphere and Your Majesty, and they're very lick-based,
right?
Versus that just flat chord.
Yeah.
Which they went back to the chords a little more in Sound of Madness, but they still had some of that feel. But again, that happens with a new guitarist. And then, again, as heavy as this album does start, it then ends with Someday, which is like a kind of you hope it's a feel-good kind of ballady. It gets a little heavier though, but it's definitely, and it just literally ends with that someday when I'm older.
Yeah, that's I wanted to mention that because it sounds like he's gonna start another verse right as the last line just kind of like cuts out, which is very interesting because you expect it to keep going, but it just doesn't.
It's kind of cool that it's it's kind of cool. It starts with a little kid reading his poem, and then ends with him vocally by himself.
Yep.
You know, so again, who's really running this band?
Yeah, right.
He comes in and he goes out.
Yep.
All right. So what are your final thoughts on the album?
So like I said, Atmospheres would be my number one.
Ooh.
I Dare You would be my Atmosphere is my number one. I love that tune.
Okay.
I Dare You would be my throwaway kind of last could do without song. But I get why they wrote it and put it on there.
Yeah.
And my dark horse is actually Beyond the Sun.
Okay. That's
there's some controversy behind that song. If you do a little bit of research, there's some claims that another band wrote that song and Shinedown possibly, I guess, borrowed it, we'll say. I don't want to make any accusations. And there were some lawsuits that went back and forth. You can read about it online. I've done it before. But that to me, just like the lyrics, everything. I mean, that song holds a special place to me. I actually have those lyrics tattooed on my arm. It was a song me and my cousin went and saw at the Toad's Place show, and he's since passed. And so I got the lyrics for Beyond the Sun tattooed, and it was just, I don't know, that song's always stuck with me even prior to. That was always a song on that album I really liked. But yeah, when I started researching it a little bit, for my tattoo actually, trying to look for lyrics, I knew I wanted Shinedown lyrics, and I was kind of bouncing between a couple songs, and that was one that I came up with. There was some controversy going, but that to me is the dark horse song. That's just a great song on the album.
Cool.
All right, I would say my personal favorite was Heroes on the track. It was the first time, obviously, I've heard all these songs for the first time on this album, but just the start of it, all the band coming, the entire band just coming in together on the intro. It's really powerful and sets the album to start off at a very high note. I would agree with Mike that I Dare You was my least favorite track. The pacing of the album just kind of died right there, which is unfortunate. But my dark horse is actually Your Majesty, because it wasn't a big track to begin with, but it picks the pacing right back up after I Dare You, and kind of has this really gritty intro in the beginning, fast pace. Again, the lead singer Brent shows his impressive energy and vocal range. Drums sound really crisp and fat. The guitar and bass work together, and it's one of the best tracks on the album, I think, for me.
It's a great song.
Yeah. Tom, I agree with you in a lot. So my favorite track is also Heroes. It's probably one of the first Shinedown songs I was exposed to. So, you tend to always go back to, your beginnings. But yeah, that bass intro, just the heavy, I love heavy songs like that, just that driving song. So Heroes is it. My least favorite track is a song we didn't talk about yet. It's called Lady So Divine.
Yes, I was going to mention that too.
There are moments in that song that are good, but it's like, I think it's like 7 minutes long.
Yes, it's like 7.5.
And I kind of doze off in the middle there. Like, I just kind of got lost. I don't know. I'm sure they meant for it to be this creative kind of piece, but it didn't stick for me the way I think they would have wanted. So Lady So Divine, my least favorite. My dark horse is also Your Majesty. It's a killer track that I wish got to the forefront, and it's right after that 1, 2, 3 single trio.
Yep.
And it's the song after that, and by that time, a lot of people might tune off on the album. But also, Atmosphere and Fake are two other songs that I really like. Those two songs, so ratings?
Ratings, all right, I'll start. As I mentioned before, not the biggest fan of this album, but I think for what it was very on the point. It was very part of its era, because it's a bit older.
Yeah,
it's,
makes sense.
2006. But I think it's very inconsistent at points, and it lacks a lot of interesting songwriting for me. The lead singer was easily the best part of the entire thing, had a lot of energy, was very focused. But with its constant shifts in pacing, and some of the B-sides were a little bit forgettable, I think it's probably around a 2 to a 2.5 out of 5 for me.
Wow. Okay, that's fine though.
We can't give trophies to everyone.
I was actually thinking about this. What's the first album that we're not going to see eye to eye on if we're going to have a big fight about this?
Yes.
But I will agree. There are really good points on this album.
Right. But it also depends on what you grew up listening to, what genres you tend to. So that's what it.
My exposure to this album wasn't really big until we started announcing what it was going to be. So
Right. For me, this is a 4 out of 5 bops. I also agree that there are a couple songs on there that are forgettable, but I think the songs that are memorable are memorable.
Yeah, they stick with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I picked the album, and I picked it for a reason, and I say it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I've got other reasons behind like seeing them live, and who I saw them with, and tattoos. So I would say I'm still not going to go a 5 with it because I do agree with you. There's some songs that are just off that aren't quite 100%, and whether they're the best song or not, I still get why they're on the album because I've listened to it so many times. I'd give them 4.5, 4.5 bops on that. But again, I definitely am, I guess you could say, skewed a bit in my rating because I've just got a lot going on with this album between, personal experience and everything else. There's a lot more going there.
That's gonna happen.
And so for Baby Kittens, how many hops out of 5 would you give it?
How many hops? So this was my beer. I'm going to sound corny, but I'm giving this a 5 out of 5.
Wow.
Nice. I think they did a fantastic job with it. If you're just getting to IPAs, this is for you. If you love IPAs, this is also for you. Well done, Fat Orange Cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be I guess you could call me the dark horse on this one. I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a
That's
3
reasonable.
in the hops. And the reason being is it's a very good IPA. It's an easy drinkable IPA. It literally hits every New England IPA statistic or checkbox that you need. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason I'm giving it a 3. Because there was nothing special that was ooh, I have to have this one. Mm-hmm. I just feel like I could have a very similar IPA in a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a good New England IPA. It drinks smooth. Mm-hmm. It checks every box that you expect it to check. Mm-hmm. It's just, I wish it had just that one little twist that made it a little more, I just wish the beer flavoring, the smell, the something had just a little more bite to it to kind of make it stand out.
Yeah. Well, I'll meet you guys in the middle, and I'll give this a 4 bops. Four hops. Excuse me.
Wow, you keep doing it. We need a cue card.
I'm pretty sure you came up with the rating system, and you just are the one fucking it up.
It's weird how similar those words are. It's almost like we picked those.
I know.
For the podcast.
It's like they rhyme or something.
But I'll agree mostly with Mike that it's what you kind of want out of an IPA. It's not gonna knock you off your feet and make you want to take a nap after you drink it. It's solid. It's got a good base to it, but it's kind of missing that wow factor that kind of puts it over the edge for me. But for what you get out of it, the citrus taste, the whole haziness of it, it's a solid IPA that I would give a 4 out of 5 for me.
Damn, I sound like the trophy giver here.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's what this podcast is all about, right?
That's right.
All opinions.
You
Cool.
can give a trophy to whoever you'd like.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Joe gets the participation
Thanks a
ribbon.
lot.
The maroon.
Yeah, right.
You did it.
All right, let's do some shout-outs here. So, FatOrangeCatBrewCo.com, Instagram, FatOrangeCatBrewCo. They're on Facebook as well. Check them out.
Yep, you got Shinedown. You can find them easily, but you also got Smith & Myers. Don't leave them out. Smith & Myers is just, so check out Shinedown. Follow them. Just an unbelievable band in every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Cool. So next episode 3, we have a special treat for you.
It's Producer's Pick.
Producer's Pick. What do you got for us, Thomas?
That's
next
right.
time?
I got Dirt by Alice in Chains on the docket, and also we've got Cloud Source by Two Roads in Connecticut.
Nice.
So,
that's more in my neck of the woods.
We are
That's right.
conveniently picking Connecticut breweries.
I know. It's like a theme here or something.
So get excited for that. That'll be dropping next week. But yeah, that's been episode 2.
Awesome. We've had a great time. Hope you're enjoying the podcast as much as we are.
Yep.
Check us out, Hops and Bops podcast on Instagram, Facebook as well. For Mike and Tom, I'm Joe. Thanks for listening.
Peace.